What if I told you that the most feared soldiers in human history weren't born warriors? They were manufactured? What kind of civilization looks at a newborn child and immediately asks, is this one worth keeping? Here's what I promise you: by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how Sparta turned ordinary human beings into something the ancient world had never seen before, and frankly, has never seen since. We're going back to 450 BC. We're walking into the Agoge, the most brutal human conditioning program ever designed. And I need to warn you right now, what Sparta did to its children is deeply disturbing, but it worked. Stay with me, because the story of how it worked will change how you think about discipline, identity, and what humans are actually capable of. Sparta was surrounded by enemies, always. To the north, rival city-states hungry for dominance. Beneath their own feet, a population of enslaved people called the Helots, who outnumbered Spartan citizens by as many as 7-1. Let that sink in. One Spartan warrior for every 7 people who hated him and desperately wanted to be free. This was the existential problem Sparta could never fully solve. And their answer, their terrifying answer, was this: don't build better weapons, build better men. And it started impossibly at birth. When a Spartan boy was born, he wasn't handed to his mother to celebrate. He was taken to a group of elders, the Gerousia, who examined him like you'd inspect a piece of equipment. Was he strong? Was he well-formed? Did he cry with vigor or weakness? If the answer was wrong, he was left on the slopes of Mount Taygetos. Now, I want you to hold on to that image, because that ruthless, cold calculation at birth, that's not the cruelest thing Sparta did to its boys. So, not even close. We'll get to what was, but first, you need to understand what those boys who survived were walking into. At age 7, it began. Not school, not training, erasure. The Agoge, from the Greek word meaning to lead away, stripped a boy of everything that made him an individual. His name mattered less than his unit. His comfort meant nothing. His family was a memory. Boys slept on rushes. They cut themselves from the riverbank with their bare hands. No tools allowed. In winter, they added thistles underneath. They trained barefoot, year-round, not because Sparta couldn't provide sandals, but because discomfort was the lesson. They were fed barely enough to survive intentionally. The famous Spartan black broth, a thick soup of pork, blood, vinegar, and salt, was a running joke in the ancient world. A visiting dignitary from another city-state once tasted it and reportedly said, "Now I understand why Spartans do not fear death." But here's what the joke misses entirely. The hunger was deliberate, because hungry boys steal, and stealing in the Agoge wasn't punished. Getting caught stealing was. If a boy was clever enough, fast enough, ruthless enough to take what he needed without detection, he was rewarded. They were beaten regularly, not as punishment for mistakes, but as conditioning, to teach them that pain was information, not a crisis. By the time a Spartan boy reached his late teens, he had been cold, hungry, exhausted, and physically tested for over a decade. And then came the thing I mentioned earlier, the Crypteia. The Crypteia was Sparta's secret trial. The word itself means the hidden things. Selected young men, the best of their group, were sent out alone into the countryside at night. No weapons except a knife. No supplies. No companions. Their mission? To survive, to move unseen, and historians believe to hunt helots who wandered too far from their villages after dark. This wasn't savagery for its own sake. This was a dual-purpose system. Keep the helot population living in fear and prove that a Spartan warrior could operate alone in darkness without support. Because here is the central paradox of Spartan training that most people completely miss. They trained men to be ruthlessly individual survivalists, so that on the battlefield, they could completely surrender the self to the unit. The phalanx only works if every man holds, not most men, every man. Look at this reconstruction of the aspis, the great Spartan round shield, nearly a meter across, bronze face, polished to a mirror shine. In a phalanx, that shield doesn't protect you. The left half of your shield protects the man to your left. You are protected by the man to your right. So if you break, if you run, if you flinch, you don't just die. You kill the man who trusted you with his life. The ancient sources describe enemies who faced this formation, saying they felt the sunlight disappear behind that wall of bronze. That was the weapon, not just the spears, not just the shields. The certainty that not one of those men would move. By the time a Spartan warrior reached 30 years old, he had spent 23 years inside the Agoge system. 23 years of cold, hunger, discipline, darkness, and war. And I want to ask you something genuinely. What does a human being become after that? Not a soldier. Not exactly. Something closer to a concept. The Spartans understood something that modern psychology has only recently begun to quantify. Identity is malleable. Who you are is largely a function of what you've endured. Sparta engineered identity from birth. They didn't make fearless men by teaching courage. They made fearless men by systematically removing the alternative. And when those men stood at Thermopylae in 480 BC, just a generation before our story today, when 300 of them held the pass against an army estimated in the hundreds of thousands, they didn't do it out of rage. They didn't do it out of desperation. They did it because retreating was simply not a category their minds contained. Plutarch records that before Thermopylae, a Persian messenger told the Spartans to surrender their weapons. King Leonidas replied with 2 words, "Molon Labe, come and take them." And this brings us to the most famous thing a Spartan mother ever said to her son. She hands him his shield before he marches to battle, and she says, "With it or on it. Return carrying your shield as a victor, or be carried home on it, as a warrior who fell with honor." There was no third option. That phrase, those 4 words, is the entire Spartan civilization compressed into a single sentence. The individual does not matter. The mission matters. The unit matters. The state matters. And you signed up for this at birth, whether you agreed to it or not. Now here's what I want you to sit with after this video ends. Was the Agoge effective? Undeniably. Sparta punched above its weight for 3 centuries in the most competitive military landscape the ancient world had ever seen. Was it sustainable? No. The Spartan population collapsed. The system was so brutal, so demanding, that they couldn't produce enough citizens to maintain it. By 371 BC, at the Battle of Leuctra, the Spartan army was shattered by Thebes. The myth of Spartan invincibility broken. And that, maybe, is the final lesson. A civilization that optimizes completely for war wins every battle until the day it doesn't.